Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Boggs. I'm visiting here from Saratoga Springs, New York, which if you don't know where that is, it's about halfway between Montreal and New York City on the line. And also really close to Boston too, same trip, so it's a good place to be. I've been doing search marketing since I got out of the Marines 20 years ago, so I've been pretty much here since the beginning. Today, however, I'm moderating, so it's not anything at all about my knowledge, but more about our wonderful panelists that are joining us. The format for today is going to be each of the panelists is going to present themselves and a brief introduction in regards to what's on their mind related to marketing for this industry. And that will hopefully seed some questions in your mind, because we're going to kick it right over to you for questions. I have some questions too to help the content continue to flow, but we want this to be about the stuff you want to learn about. So feel free to ask very specific questions about your website if you want, or more general questions, whatever you want. This is for you guys, and we'll get it kicked off. Who would like to go first, gentlemen?
I'll go first.
Guillermo, okay.
Check. All right, this is working fine. All right, my name is Guillermo.
You gotta kind of get it at the right height, but far enough away.
All right, yeah, my name is Guillermo Bravo. I'm with Foot Traffic. I'm the CEO and founder. We're based out of San Francisco, California. I've been doing marketing for dispensaries for 3 years now. Our focus is on really driving customers to your business. So that's foot traffic to your store, that's visitors to your website. Everything that we do is in support of that. So we really focus on customer acquisition through digital marketing, through search engines, through social media, through mobile devices. So a lot of what we'll be talking about today is related to how you're going to get new customers. So how you're going to get new customers to your medical or recreational dispensary, and do this in a compliant manner. So I think across the board here we have different experience in working in regulated markets. So our goal is to show you how provide instruction on how you can grow your business in a compliant manner and capture customers, and really leverage all the assets that you have available. We on my side, I came into the industry really wanting to educate dispensary owners specifically on what they can do, what are the options, what's available, what's compliant, and really how to grow your business. So we've developed an ebook. When I first started, the first thing I wanted to do was put out education. So I put together a 50-page pretty much guide on everything you need to do, from brand conception all the way to opening your store, to opening stores in multiple states, and really providing that roadmap and that blueprint for you to expand across states. So my company's Foot Traffic, and you can look at the website, and you can download that. And if you want to come up to me after the panel, I can share that information with you. But that's all I have.
All right. Well, my name is Pete Sessa, and I am the co-founder of the Florida Cannabis Coalition, as you can see on my shirt. So we are the largest and oldest cannabis organization in the state of Florida. We started back in 2014, before there was an amendment on the ballot, before we had a CBD law, before we had anything. We started a cannabis company in a state that had no cannabis. So while that might have been not well advised then, it turned out well. Our membership base has grown by leaps and bounds, and we've shifted our focus from getting laws passed, or at least our main focus from getting laws passed, to helping the industry grow. And that helps, so we help people get into the industry. So we host a lot of networking events around the state, and we host events much like this, like big conferences. We had one last month here in Miami. And those conferences and those events are designed to bring the entire community together. So that's part of what we do now. A lot of what else we do is we do some marketing for the dispensaries here in Florida. In Florida, if you're not familiar, there are not that many dispensaries, so the playing field for your client base is not that big. But you do get that the companies that are here are big. They're big marijuana companies. It's not like you're dealing with smaller dispensaries. So we're kind of the client and the media company, because our channels are on social media, so we have a big social media following that we've built up over the years. So we have, that media base, which helps us reach a big audience, and we're also, a client of trying to get our own message out there, right? So in that respect, we're kind of a client. So my personal story is I was born in 1977 on 4/20, and that's when my career in cannabis began. It's actually true. That number's actually followed me through my whole life. And now I'm in this business. I was half of an activist when I was in my late teens and early 20s. I'm from New York, and we did these things called the pot parades, as we call them. It would be a bunch of people in Washington Square Park and gathering together. The music was there. I remember Cypress Hill played the first year, and then we'd all march up Fifth Avenue to Central Park, where the rumor was they were going to drop joints out of a helicopter. That's how you get people to march up Fifth Avenue in the summer in New York and tell them they're going to drop joints from a helicopter. Nobody ever did, but there was people smoking on the Great Lawn, which was great. And so when I got to college, I did every time I had a chance to do research papers or anything like that. It was all about cannabis. And then, kind of real life took over for a little while, and I went into the corporate world, and I was a marketing executive for about 15 years for a big broadcast company. And my main job was to incorporate advertisers into our existing programming. So not in a commercial type way, but more in a content integration way. They say, like when I was doing it, they called it content integration, which was a fancy word for saying product placement, which they've been doing since TV was invented. I mean, Edward R. Murrow had the Camel ashtray on, it's always a new name. Now it's called content marketing, now it's, I'm integrating stuff in. So, coming into this industry, when we started this, we quickly learned that there are a lot of hurdles when you're in this highly regulated industry, even when that regulation is coming from social media companies and private industry. You have to figure out, you figure out quickly that content marketing is invaluable in this industry. So that's what I feel that we've been able to bring to a lot of our efforts and a lot of the efforts for the dispensaries here. So that's a little bit of our history. We do a lot of things grassroots. We're very lean. We keep our stuff very lean, and a lot of us do a little bit of everything. So. That's what we are, and happy to be here at USCC conference. I'll pass it along.
First of all, good morning. I'm thrilled actually that we have the crowd that we do. I've noticed over the years that with conferences, as you get to the second day, the third day, the start times tend to sort of extend and extend and extend. And that has nothing to do with the substances of this, and that are the subject matter of the conference, for the record. Exactly. Although one of the best quotes from the conference South by Southwest is that between the science and the day drinking, you're set. So it's a pleasure. My name is Scott Rabinowitz. I've had the pleasure of doing digital marketing and specifically media buying, spending other people's money to generate acquisition of new customers, whether it be on the business-to-business side and lead generation for cultivators and suppliers and the like, to all the way down to retail and direct response e-commerce. It is not my first age-restricted rodeo, is the polite way to say. There are industries, some more salacious than others, that started laying some of the groundwork that actually allows for any cannabis advertising of any kind to be visible, what I call outside of the cannabis bubble on the internet. There's a difference between seeing your promotion specifically within a gated or walled community of people that already love cannabis. They already know potentially about your product, and they may even already know about your business. So fantastic for reinforcing the brand, but the ultimate adventure for everybody here between compliance and an actual performance is reaching out to people that don't know the brand. No different than for any type of company in any industry. Although it's other people's, nonetheless, we've had the good fortune, myself and my colleagues at Buoyancy Digital, we've spent approximately $300 million over the last 20 years driving direct response. No disrespect to the traditions of branding by any means at all, but when the internet came along, I was working for a company called Website Story. Our founders had a sense of humor. Chris knows that. Yeah, there was before there was Google Analytics, there was a free product called Hitbox, and it was ad supported, as a lot of the internet was in those days, and it's kind of still true today. At the end of the day, the internet, and however you choose to utilize it, is either going to be supported by paying the provider directly, paywall, you're accessing content, video on demand, what have you, or it's ad supported in one form or another. At the end of the day, those are the primordial business models that drive it all. Within the cannabis sector, what's been interesting is, as these gentlemen have noted, and everybody here at the conference, is it's a never-ending adventure with compliance. I mean, it's phenomenal or scary, depending on how you look at it, the fact that you have all of your traditional seed to sale requirements, if you're in the physical and brick and mortar and growing space, but the second you have any kind of imprint on the internet, you have all kinds of additional accountability, not just to your licensor agency for your state, but depending on where you fall in the spectrum of CBD versus cannabis, accessories, even vaporizing accessories versus non-vaporizing accessories can trigger certain sensitivities. For example, vaporizers are considered to be in the tobacco realm, and because of the fact that there's been an appropriate movement to try and drive down youth consumption of tobacco, I've seen numerous media vendors take a dim view towards the hardware providers and not want to differentiate, for example, between a vape that's intended for the consumption of cannabis by a medical patient versus somebody that's going to put tobacco in and invite their friends over. Presents certain challenges, but the number one thing I wanted to bring to you all today is a little bit of good news. There's so much doom and gloom. I hear all the time, as we all do, you can't advertise on the internet, you can't get traffic, you can't go here, you can't do that. It's not that you can't, it's that it's going to require, in most cases, a considerably greater level of patience and a willingness to actually make, in some cases, significant changes to the thing. In this case, it may be your website, it may be an app, it may be an email list or a blog, whatever it happens to be that you're trying to drive interest towards. Packaging is everything, so to speak. So you could have 10 conversations with Google with 10 different representatives and get 10 different answers as to whether or not a particular page, even if you're trying to generate interest for a cannabis organization, what have you. The National Cannabis Industry Association, largest in the United States, their ads were rejected by Facebook. That's incomprehensible, right? But in fairness, and I say this with love and respect for the organization, I could see where, depending on who was looking at the ad, because don't forget, whenever you submit an ad for placement to any media vendor, whether it's digital or otherwise, in many cases, if it's a self-service platform, you've provided a credit card, you've registered, and you've gone in. So the technology, the algorithms and the software are doing the first pass. Do they like your ads? Do they like your account? Does everything look legitimate? And if everything passes, a lot of people, particularly in this industry, may presume, we've made it past the finish line. No, you made it past the computer. And then at some point, the secondary algorithms will kick in, and they may see something that the first time didn't, and then they'll kick it to a human. The part that you need to be most concerned about is the subjective part. Even if this human works for Google or works for Facebook or works for any of the largest technology and media organizations, they have their own opinions about cannabis in addition to whatever the company policy says. And even though we're all professionals and we expect that people would adhere to the company guidelines, what I found in almost 100% of scenarios is that it is the subjective bias that winds up driving the day. And you have the ability to impact that if you get on the horn or in an email discussion with an ad vendor that could potentially bring you new business, clearly. And they're saying to you, no, there's cannabis leaves on your your front page. There is an e-commerce mechanism, a direct response mechanism. They're actually not complaining. They're specifically telling you what things that if you were to remove, change, or move them would potentially actually get you past the finish line. So it's always been true that digital is not something as it relates to advertising to set and forget. Some people like the idea of I plugged it in, my credit card's live, my site is live, whatever happens, as long as it's within a certain price range, I'm okay. That doesn't work in the same sense that you folks that might be in the retail end of the business get those nightmarish memos at the end of the week that say that whatever was acceptable for packaging on Monday is no longer acceptable on Friday, and you have to start all over again. Well, those of you that are already accepting of that reality will actually have less of a challenge dealing with the digital marketing side, because the number one complaint I get from everybody once they actually dig in is it's not that they can't advertise, it's that, oh my God, well, so-and-so asked me to change my landing page. Well, so that costs you $100 worth of your designer's labor, but then gives you access to a proposal that might generate 30 new leads, 30 new paying customers a day, a week, a month. There are, whether the production costs, if you will, or the non-activity costs of paid advertising. That's design, that's technology, that's data sets that you might use, etc. Anything and everything that you can utilize to articulate a better case, and also a willingness to be flexible with the media vendor, it's not going to guarantee you, because again, you're dealing with a human that may have an extreme bias against everything that we all stand for. But the highest probability of success in actually getting an ad placed, regardless of whether you're on the retail end or the business-to-business side, is by actually flexibility is an understatement. I don't even know if there's a better word than flexibility in this context, but I've seen clients literally have to change their the language and the imagery on their pages 10, 12 times, thinking that it was a bottomless pit. But on the 12th time, the vendor said yes, and quite literally their world changed in a matter of moments. And as long as they stayed on top of what the vendor kept recommending, poof, all of a sudden, that particular client's walking around conferences like this, hearing everybody saying you can't get advertising, and their limo's waiting outside in a proverbial fashion. They've done well, and they've paid the price. But it's not just a monetary exercise. Be prepared to work. Even as somebody doing this work for 23 years, I'm doing more work per client to actually effectively create results and even get onboarded with media platforms and media providers than I've done with companies from the Fortune 10 to adult entertainment and everything in between. But again, as a final bit for the introduction, the good news is there are actually many more digital media vendors, regardless of where you fall in the food chain, that are willing to work with you if you are willing to work with them, as opposed to just present your credit card.
Well, I definitely want to talk about some of that stuff that you just mentioned, because that hit on a lot of my pain points. I happen to think that a better word would be creativity, because I think it's an art form, that you have to hit. To give you an example, we held a conference in Miami 2 years ago, and we were running Facebook ads for it. And Facebook ads had a big white marijuana leaf, like designed kind of marijuana leaf. It wasn't like a leaf. It was more of a clip art kind of a leaf. And then it had a picture of Miami behind it, and it was getting hit like crazy. It was like the traffic was done by like 11 o'clock in the morning. The ad was shut off because we were hitting our maximums, and we were getting opt-ins, 25% rate on our website. It was good. It was going great, and they shut the ad down maybe a week before the event, which we already had captured all the leads by then, so that was good. But that was 2 years ago, and since then we haven't been able to do ads like that. But the thing that taught me was, we can get around that by trying to change the content, change the linking page that it's going to, change the imagery that's in the ad, change the language that's in it. But the things that were effective are the things they want us to change. So that's where the art form comes in. So that leaf is what was getting people to click on it. So if you make me take the leaf out, the ad becomes less effective, right? So now I got to find out, what can I put in there that's going to get the same amount of clicks as a leaf, that's going to be okay with the vendor. So what's funny, it just occurred to me. I don't know if you saw that Facebook algorithms can tell the difference between weed and broccoli tempura, right? So now you can just put a picture of broccoli tempura because people can't tell the difference between the two, right? But the algorithm can. So now let's just use broccoli tempura. Might actually. Well, I haven't tried that yet. It's pretty funny to try it. I don't have an ad account anymore. I've had 3 shut down, so I can't try that anymore. But and something again about those content moderators. I used to have this picture of like this high-minded content moderator. Oh, I'm not going to allow this. I'm not going to allow this. But I found out that these people are like in sweatshops monitoring content for Facebook, and they have these horrible conditions. Half of the day they're looking at like imagery that Facebook doesn't want anybody in the world to see. So these people are looking at it all day, and these are the people that hold the keys to your content getting on there. So that's a really good point, to make that subjective part of it. You need to be prepared for that. And then those little things that I never think that you wouldn't think trigger stuff like we would put the word learn in some of our ads, and learn triggers something because there's a lot of scam schools out there that they're getting away from, right? So it's like little things like, what do you mean the word learn is getting tagged? So like you got to be constantly on top of that, constantly. So I just want to you just brought that stuff up and wanted to address that.
And just don't resist. The number one recommendation is if a vendor is pushing back on you, unless they tell you, no, we will not deal with you, as is said in sales, until you get the firm no, you're actually being given directions if you're listening correctly. So the good news is for any of you that are either in the creative fields or have colleagues that are in the creative, if they think that they are doomed because they're stuck basically drawing pictures of ganja for the rest of their life if they're working in a cannabis company, give them the great news that their creativity may be more needed selling cannabis in any aspect of the industry than even if they were selling consumer packaged goods for the world's largest companies.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, in regards to Facebook specifically, being creative with the type of media that you're creating to boost is another point. So static images, static ads, those can be reviewed through the algorithm. But if you create a video and use that as the media to really boost your ad, it's harder for someone to really reject that because they're not going to see, there's no text in there, it's just someone talking. Or if it's video media has been much more effective in getting ads approved, specifically on Facebook, in comparison to like the static ads, like the text ads, the image ads. That's one point.
Even GIFs?
GIFs, no, video. I would just stick with video. And then in addition to that, if you're a dispensary and you want to get a video approved of your grand opening or some type of event that you're having, you're opening a store in Oakland, California, what you can do creatively is partner with a publisher. So 7x7 in San Francisco, they have a publication, and what you can do is partner with a publication and pay them to run the ads for you. So it's a little workaround.
We do that with the New Times here. We did that with Miami New Times.
Yeah, so you're the cannabis company, but this publisher can do whatever they want. So they have an ongoing relationship with Facebook, and they can get anything approved. So if it's within, if it's not a ad per se, if it's more of a like PR placement, a product placement, then that's going to get approved. But if it's just hey, we're a cannabis store, we're opening up, that's not going to get approved. So, have a story behind, the media that's being picked up. So, let's say for Oakland, it's maybe it's a consumption lounge in San Francisco that makes you unique from everyone else. So having some type of media about that and having that press coverage boosted instead of a traditional ad. So a little workaround.
Nice, excellent start, guys. I want to kick one question, and then while people are thinking of what they want to ask, mobile and mobile versus mobile web versus the apps and versus desktop. What are some of the top priorities to consider in this mobile age for what you guys are doing?
Mobile's king. I mean, really, what does everyone have in their pocket? They got a cell phone, they got a smart device, right? So how are people searching for products? They're on their phones, they're on the move, they're driving, they're asking Siri, hey, where can I buy cannabis? So having a presence on mobile devices is crucial. And that all starts with your website. So if you don't have a mobile friendly website, users are not going to be able to find you because search engines are not going to place you higher. So that's one, is you need to have a mobile first website, not even mobile friendly website. It should be built for mobile devices first. So from my data of all our clients, it's upwards of 75% of all visitors to their websites are mobile or tablet. So desktop is it's secondary now. Just forget about it.
Just forget about desktop altogether.
For retail, respectively.
Sorry.
For that sector, yes.
Yeah, so for retail, forget about desktop and make it easy. So someone's on their iPhone. They want to find cannabis. Not here, but let's say Las Vegas. I arrive at the airport. I want to buy cannabis. What do I want to do? What do I search? I go on my phone and say, where's the dispensary near me? Or ask Siri, where can I buy pot? And if you invest in search engine optimization or SEO, you'll be one of those top 3 positions. So you'll be given a chance to get their business. So I land in Vegas, I look for a dispensary, and if I invest in SEO and whether it's Google or Yelp or whatever the search engine is that is showing the results, Siri is Yelp, Alexa, Google, they have their own platforms that show results. So really investing in your reputation and your brand is going to go a long way. So that's going to be reviews, that's going to be building authority behind your brand. So you really need to invest in that because that's the first thing that people look at. I mean, reviews go a long way, and that's all related to your reputation. So really invest in your brand, and it's mobile devices is where it's at. And I'll pass it on in 10 seconds. Related to mobile specifically, SMS marketing is a gold mine. So if you have a website, the main priority for your website should be to build your customer database. So get their email, get their name, get their phone number, most importantly. And if you have the right technology in place, you can actually get their purchasing habits. So you can get what they've purchased through their online menu, through the POS system. So get that information because for my numbers, for every cent I spend on text message, I can make anywhere between $2 to $8 for every text message on average. So SMS marketing is a gold mine. Whatever you have to do to get that customer's phone number compliantly, do that because just if it's not compliant, you need to have the opt-in. If it's not compliant, it's upwards of, I think it's $15,000 per text message that you send to customers without their permission. So look at the laws in regards to that because you just have to be compliant.
The companies usually take care of that, the SMS companies usually make sure you're compliant. I mean, my experience with mobile is that everything has moved to mobile. I mean, before I left media, the trends were ridiculous. The media consumption is all moving to mobile. And that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I can't imagine what those trends look like now. So most media is being consumed on mobile. I would make sure that all the content is made to be viewed on mobile devices so that your videos, if you're making videos so that people can make sure you have captions in them, people can read them instead of having to listen to them, because chances are people are looking at a video on their phone, they're not gonna necessarily engage the audio. So like little things like that, you gotta always be thinking about, oh, I'm gonna be watching this on my phone. Oh, I hardly make widescreen videos anymore. I'm testing something out, doing Instagram Live right now, sideways, thinking people will hold their phone sideways, because Instagram doesn't, what do you call it, scale when you turn your phone. So, just trying different things, and then I can take that video and download it later and flip it around in Premiere, and then put it out as a widescreen video, make it, square for Instagram, because those videos are big. So everything has been moving like towards mobile, and like even like the YouTube videos and stuff like that we do. And our website, like for instance, we've made sure that was completely optimized for mobile. I'm not looking at, when I send emails, I'm not looking at how they look on a desktop anymore, how the alignments come out of a desktop. It's all about how it looks on my phone. You got to make sure whatever emails you're sending are like the text. This is so crucial. Stop sending images with text in them that are unresponsive, especially to people that are, over, I don't know, put myself in this category, over 40. It's Jesus, people can't read this stuff. Like, and I see people constantly like trying to make these images bigger, and I'm like, you can't put text in there because it's not going to be responsive. And people who can't read, they'll have it on their phones, so they'll have the text setting on their phones big, so that like everything will be responsive. So you got to make sure your emails are like that. I've seen that so many times. You'd be surprised. It seems like a no-brainer. I've seen that so many times. But yeah, just make sure you're just always thinking about, how am I going to engage with this on a mobile device.
For companies or startup businesses or clinics that are trying to change their brand or reorganize themselves, what would you recommend in terms of marketing that or engaging with your present customer base, but now you're changing or you're scaling or whatever? How would you go about doing that?
Did everyone hear that? Yeah? Good.
So the question was if you're rebranding, right?
Yeah, scaling or changing, and you want to get that across to your customers and not lose your customer base and gain more customers.
It really, I think it would depend on why you would be changing or expanding the brand. To me, that reminds me of what Knox just did, right?
Exactly.
So Knox just rebranded to Fluent, right? And it took an interesting approach, and I find it kind of interesting because they went to a very sleek kind of look, right? Away from that medical look, they went to more of a sleek kind of look. But they also basically came out and said, we've learned from what we did before, and now we're this because we're Fluent in it, which I think is a little bit arrogant. But I don't know. You can be arrogant media now. It's different. It's a new day. We can say whatever we want. So yeah, I think that was interesting. Like, so they gave a reason that they've changed their brand. They're evolving their brand for a reason. So there's some sort of a story there. And if anybody's ever heard anything that I've said, I'm all about storytelling. Everything, like the whole world revolves around storytelling. Our brains are designed to listen to stories. And like if there's no story behind what you're saying, the person's brain is going to create one, because or else it's not going to understand it. Everything is a story. So if there's some sort of reason, some sort of story that you can paint to why you're rebranding or why there's an expansion or something, that's going to be the most powerful way to do that, I think.
Sometimes it's new and improved, like the old advertising, like a company has a brand and they have a new chemical or something's added to it, and they just say new and improved or something catchy, And
it can be, and that can spark a lot of conversation. Like when you do something like that.
When Coke did New Coke.
It's so funny you mention that, because I was just going to say they brought it back. They brought it back for the Stranger Things promo, which is awesome. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, this is brilliant. This is genius, because you got Stranger Things, which is tapping into that demographic who grew up with that, right? And they're going to be, and everybody's going to go out and buy it, even though it was horrible. We'll remember it being horrible and saying, bring back, Coke Classic. And then what did they do? They brought back Coke Classic. Right, it was almost like they did it on purpose.
Of course.
Right, and everybody went out and was like, "Oh, thank God it's back!" And they bought more of it.
And the bottles.
Yeah, and the bottles.
It was brilliant. I don't think they knew it was going to work so well when they came back.
I don't know. They're pretty smart.
One bit to add, and this helps as much with regards to rebranding or any other marketing objective, but as a final cap on the mobile piece, again with a bias towards the paid advertising side, So you already have, or should have, access to the most robust free data possible, which would be the Google Analytics or equivalency for your website. If it's set up fully with all of the bells and whistles, you should be able to see attribution, or what caused action, basically who should get credit, if you will, for any type of action, a download, an email collected, or a full-blown e-commerce conversion. With that in mind, and as these gentlemen have stated, mobile is dominant, but you can subdivide between the tablet user and the mobile phone user, iOS versus Android, etc. While you may not necessarily have the discretion to pick and choose when you're not paying for the media, when you are paying for the media, you can order off the menu, to be clear. So if you've done a look back over, let's assume you have enough history that you have a year's worth of data even in your Google Analytics, and you see a disproportionately higher response or success rate for whatever it is metrically that makes you most excited and turns the business from red to black to green. For the ad networks where you can buy banner advertising, rich media, display, programmatic, and then paid search for those companies that are eligible to do so, you can be as specific as telling Google AdWords, for example, not just time of day, day of week, location, and all of that. I want iPhone users. I only want iPhone 4 and 5 users because I want the people that are a little bit behind the technology curve. And you can actually, the best part is with what Pete's saying, so you have a story you want to tell. If there are elements of the story that would dictate who ideally might be the ideal audience, even if it's within the mobile context, so mobile becomes your baseline. You already know if you're buying the traffic, I want mobile only, exclude tablets, exclude desktops in this particular case. But if you know that the iOS user is more responsive, most platforms allow you to put a bid variance, if you will. So that way, apples to apples, your ad gets prospectively seen by an Android 7 user and an iOS 8 user. If you are paying specifically on the variance for the iOS 8 user, your ad will be given priority and preference, regardless of whether that's positioned on page, in terms of ranking, in the way that it looks like a small list on the side rail where you see the Google and the Bing search results, or in the position on the page. I highly recommend buying mobile. The one thing I will say, though, for the record, depending on where you fall in the industry, for those of you that might be involved in certain informational pieces, depending on the demographic, while it's a smaller segment, I would absolutely wholeheartedly concur in mobile first. But by default, it's worthy of a look to make sure, because you're getting a different type of a user mindset. If I'm looking at cannabis content in the afternoon, admittedly, this depends on demographics such as an age standard, if I'm at work or not, but a desktop user is researching, a mobile user is ready to take action. That's the single biggest differentiator that I've noticed. And it's not just the nature of impulse, it's the nature of geography. The phone, as he said, is with us at all times. The desktop is I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee and take a look to see about this CBD thing, because I've been hearing that it might help with my arthritis. That's more of a leisure read, and you may not have as high of an expectation. For what it's worth, if you are buying mobile advertising specifically from any ad network or any platform in the world, just be prepared you will pay at least a little bit more to sort out basically the rest of the folks, because the ad sellers at the end of the day are trying to sell all of their traffic, regardless of what platform or device. So the more characteristics that you want in the targeting, the smaller the pool, the higher the cost. But of course, the sweet spot is if you know exactly, based upon data, what works best for you. It's like going to the supermarket and literally ordering the appropriate qualified leads off the menu, and then the story can take over. But you've literally put the right audience in place to be able to listen to the story.
In case you missed what the important part of well, not that it wasn't all important, but the fact that you can select older phones. I mean, anybody that's got a clinic or is trying to market a clinic, that's something you might want to think about. because that's where you're marketing to people over to seniors. A lot of the patients here are seniors, and if they're on a phone, it's usually an older phone. It's usually an older phone or a tablet. Right, that's what I was just gonna say. I was like, can we pull out jitterbugs? That's exactly what I want to do. Can we send like a flip phone, like a So, but that was I'm gonna take that. I like that.
One thing I just wanted to add too on the rebranding. Rebranding can be positive, but it can also be spurred by reputation management issues. So there's an entire different track you got to take if you're rebranding based on having tainted your last brand, right? So keep that in mind, because people are smart enough to figure out the connection.
Well, that's kind of why Knox changed their brand, is because everybody had this bad like the branding just wasn't there. So they changed it and their branding basically said, hey, we know we came out and we said this, but we learned a lot since then. So that's kind of like what you're alluding to with that kind of reputation management, not severe. Like when I was doing PR in my company, it was like severe reputation management, but it's a little milder.
Another question. We got about 4 minutes left. We're trying to stay on time today. So who's got a topic they would like to talk? Yes, please. New York, Albany, representative.
Well, no, I'm Florida.
I know. X that.
I'm Florida now.
I went to SUNY Cortland, if that counts as upstate.
Yeah, that counts as upstate. My question is, you guys were talking about Amazon and Google, I'm throwing in Amazon. What are they getting? Are they getting any education on what CBD is and to help with the process of doing the advertising?
It's an opportunity. It's actually, so I'll give you 2 bits on that one. One, most important takeaway piece is you hit on the ultimate opportunity. If a giant media vendor is ill-equipped to make appropriate decisions, it may be a hard sell, but if you can get in the door even to be their trusted subject matter expert or SME, you may open the door to an entire category of advertisers that previously did not have any success, because the lack of subject matter expertise inside these organizations towards our industry and other industries like it is enormously problematic. And yes, while the burden should fall on them to self-educate, they don't. And so besides an individual personal subjective bias, just lack of data, plain and simple. I mean, it's so as an advertiser, it's phenomenal, but for those of you that are taking a little bit more of the long game approach, especially organizations and the like, if you want, you actually have a better shot at ultimately having commercial relations with a media vendor if you do them a solid. Maybe a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and it sounds incredibly simplistic, but you hit it on the head. You cannot assume by any stretch of the imagination that Facebook has a team of people that are staying current on not just the laws and the compliance side, but even the important considerations and even what the subject matter is about. They'll see it, somebody else will talk about one of the newer cannabinoids that's being discovered, and 3/4 of the people that get exposed to it don't even know what the term is. And they're not necessarily going to take the time. That guy or gal that Pete spoke of that's in the boiler room doing QA for the ad networks, they just want to get through their day without screaming bloody murder after seeing the horrific trash that's on the internet that they have to purge constantly. I mean, things that are just horrific. So yes, telling the story sometimes even before you're ready to place the buy is very critical. And just even from personal experience, it's arguably one of the single greatest things you could do for your brand is to establish yourself not to your industry as thought leadership. Like that is a given and assumed, but it's to the outside. At the end of the day, most all of the people here are interested in going after new consumers, new businesses that don't already have an affinity for what we do and believe in. So before you can expect response, education actually has to be extreme and it has to be consistent. One tiny piece to touch on real quick as a capper for that. Everybody thinks that retargeting is the creepiest thing on earth. When you leave a site, you didn't complete the purchase, and you go to check the news, and your unfinished shopping cart is waiting for you on the other site.
I love it.
Exactly. It's Big Brother at its best and worst, but it's data-driven. I actually recommend for this industry be receptive to this. The companies that actually know how to do this and follow all of the ethical guidelines and the like. I spoke to a company an hour before coming into this room who actually has a data set of CBD users that's 10 million deep that they have spent years culling and cultivating. An advertiser or a seller could actually use that data set to inform and target the campaign and literally increase the possibility of response, reaction, and a return on investment 1,000-fold. I would say for sure, absolutely take the time to, the term for it is tech stack. It's fancy technology fluff, but what it basically means is it's your tech stack when you're advertising is everything from an ad server if you use one, to image display capabilities, to geo-targeting capabilities, to data sets. It is the combination of all those things together that when executed correctly gives the probability of a campaign for being able to work or not.
What's that?
I was just going to say that, you know, establishing yourself outside of, you know, the community as an expert necessarily is how we built the Florida Cannabis Coalition brand. I mean, I'm at the top of every reporter's list of people to call when they have a question about things. And once you're in with like these different, because the reporters will work for media companies, they're all companies that sell advertising too. So it's kind of like we're giving them all this content, we're giving them, you know, the go-to people, and when I go and I try and place ads with them and stuff like that, it's kind of like, you know, you work together and they trust you. And, you know, you get a lot of opportunities to mention your website as well.
I have a question. I'm a digital strategist by day, and I've done email campaigns for Charlotte's Web and Green Roads and a lot of the big guys. I do a lot of advertising. But I also launched a network years ago called America's Health Network, and I'm just wondering if we need like another media outlet, like an MSO or some place where we can get this information out, awareness with doctors and everything. You know, either that's a YouTube channel or it's a television network, alternative.
It's cool. You can make like WordPress websites that look exactly like YouTube now for like $200. And you just, and all you need is a lot of server space. You can just, and you can make like a whole like cannabis YouTube. I think it's just hard to get like it's hard for them to get traction. Like Mass Roots almost had traction, and then they kind of dropped off the face of the earth, you know, because there's some mismanagement there. But you know, it was like I think it's hard to like and it's not just this industry that's looking for that. It's anybody that's getting censored off of social media that's looking to create a new platform. That's a good question.
I have a group that's doing that, and the reason I ask is because we need a channel where we can do this advertising without this censorship. Okay, and I've launched these networks before. I've reached out to people that I know can make it happen, so I definitely want to talk to you guys about that.
Absolutely. There are specifically at least a half dozen vendors that are established presently that are 100% cannabis friendly. It takes sifting, and of course they're not all created equal and the like, and there are new ones emerging all the time. But the number one piece that's changed is, so programmatic is a really fancy technical fluff word from Madison Avenue, and I love Madison Avenue, but it is what it is. It's automated. It's automating your process. It's basically giving you your life back if you're a media buyer or a brand. Right. But what really the big takeaway for that, whether it's a rebrand effort, whether it is an internal or intra-community effort or cross-community effort, the essence of why I'm bringing up programmatic as a capper here is programmatic allows people to advertise to specific people. It's not just I want to reach all people that might be in the ad rotation 21 to 35. It's that I actually want to reach validated specific audience sets. It's scary. Yes, it means that your ad will follow them around and the like, but if you have a specific message and you're using a specific set of messaging standards, you'll get this right. I mean, regardless of whether it's an organization or trying to drive an actual business response, you can storytell what this gentleman is speaking of, even through the retargeting process. So ad 1 tells the general story. Ad 2 adds a little bit of urgency. Ad 3 is a reminder, hey, we have, you know, an event coming up tonight or tomorrow night. Opt in now and get the. So it's
just like your emails.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Strategy's everything.
Yes. Think first. Take a deep breath. Act, and then be prepared to modify. I mean, with all of it. But the best news of all is that across the spectrum now, I mean, even compared to this time last year, there are probably 20 to 30 more vendors across digital media that are now cannabis friendly than there were before.
One last point, Guillermo? No, okay. I do have to wrap it formally, but I'm sure that the speakers would be willing to answer more questions for
no
you.
questions. No further
There
questions.
is lunch, I believe, being
Consultations.
served any minute now. And then the next session's at 1 p.m. There will be another marketing focused session, but it's in a different room at 1, just so you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to speakers.
Cool, I know the next time.
Great job, guys.
Yeah.